Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined by Craig Burley and Shaka. Hislop. Eze's proposed move to Arsenal. Still very much the big headline around the Premier League at the moment. Of course, this is a deal that Tottenham thought they had done. However, Arsenal, in the last 24 hours, have come in and hijacked it, and it looks like the English international will be heading to the Emirates. For more on this, James Olley joins us. James, obviously, we thought that Eze might play today. There were suggestions, of course, Crystal Palace in this conference playoff game, that a deal was done between Spurs and Palace that he would play in this match. Obviously, that didn't happen today.
No, it didn't. It's been quite a dramatic day or so. I think Spurs have made all the running on this right until yesterday afternoon, really, when Arsenal decided to make their move for Eze. And the thing is, they kind of knew, they always had up their sleeve the fact that he is a boyhood Arsenal fan, that he always had this dream to one day play for Arsenal. Spurs, of course, had got to the point where they'd agreed a fee with Palace. They'd agreed with Eze that he would come. Eze was quite happy to come, despite the fact that he was a boyhood Arsenal fan. He felt as though that was the big move that was available to him. But then a combination of things, really sort of the final sort of piece of the jigsaw really being the injury to Kai Havertz. We don't know exactly how bad that is, but it's bad enough for Arsenal to reassess their position in the market, but that was enough to be the catalyst for them to go and say to Palace, right, what have Spurs negotiated? We'll match that, and we know the player wants to come to us. So once they made the decision to go for it, it was quite quick, and it moved, it moved very, very fast.
This begs the question, though, James, why didn't Arsenal just get this done earlier on in the window? If they had the funds there, they knew that Eze could be available, we know what he would bring to the table. Why has it taken them this long? Why has it taken it to this point?
OK, so there's a couple of reasons for that. Firstly, there was a £68 million release clause in Eze's contract that expired earlier this month, and nobody, Arsenal and Spurs included, felt he was quite worth that. So they thought, well, let's let that expire and then see where we are later in the window. The second point was that their interest was partly contingent on the fear that Ethan Nwaneri would not sign a new contract, and they felt that if that he was going to run his deal down, or that they would be in a position where they'd have to sell him this summer, then that would free up the space in the squad for Eze. And then the third, and arguably the most important factor, is the injury to Kai Havertz, because of course, although Eze's not a number 9, strictly speaking, well, he isn't at all really, he can play out on the left or play as a number 10, they felt as though they were really short last season in those attacking areas, and that was the reason they feel internally why they didn't win the league. They suffered too many injuries in that position. In those positions, they got injured. They felt, well, is this going to be history repeating itself? Shall we actually go for Eze rather than wait until we've made some money from player income, from player sales, get that money back, get some money off the wage bill, and then go for him later in the window? And really, circumstances dictated that it was now or never, and they decided to pull the trigger and go for it.
OK, here we go. Let's try it. Craig.
Day 2.
What a coup for Arsenal.
Yeah, I think this is a brilliant move for both. As Jim said, Tottenham was the destination because he felt there wasn't another big move. But this is a fit for me because he improves Arsenal. I think he plays. He can play in 2 or 3 different positions. He's a quality footballer. I really like him. You've only got to watch Crystal Palace in England in the last couple of years to see that. He is different to what they've got in the wider areas. Martinelli's all about pace. And if Eze plays on the left, he's more of a guy that drifts around a little bit. As James said, he can play in that number 10 role as well. His end product is very good. He's great on the ball. I mean, if you watched him in the Chelsea game in particular, and the Liverpool game, he was brilliant at taking the ball in with a couple of big guys very tight to him. We saw the finish there in the cup final. I watched we were at the Community Shield, obviously, and there was times he was taking the ball in these areas where I thought, right, he's got nowhere to go here. He's got no chance. He's got 2 centre-halves, he's got 2 big defenders, really pinned them in. And the way that he just takes the ball in and sort of nonchalantly just a little nutmeg or whatever, I just think he's a terrific player. I think he gives this Arsenal team something they've not got. And I also think, and it's just my opinion, that at times last year in the big games, and you know we've had this discussion, that in the really big games, Martin Odegaard sometimes was a little lightweight. Not saying he's not a good player, but in the really big games, he was a little lightweight. And I think Eze can put pressure on him. Not suggesting he's getting dropped, but, you know, needs must. because Eze can play that position. So he can play any position on the front line, pretty much, and he can put pressure on Martin Odegaard. And this really, when we saw that graphic there about the players that have come in, this is the sort of no excuse time now, isn't it, for Mikel Arteta? This is a really beefy, quality. This is as good a quality Arsenal squad as they've had for years. They've been in a really good position for the last couple of years. But they have really puffed their squad out now with quality footballers. Quality guys that, as James said, can come in. If Shaka's out for 3-4 months like he was last year, they need quality to come in. They've got that, and that means Mikel Arteta will have to make sure his team are delivering. Gyökeres is scoring goals, and all the other facets are firing on all cylinders. But in terms of Eze, I'm happy for the boy because he's 27. This is a huge move, and I honestly think he's more than good enough to come into this Arsenal team and, most importantly, make a difference.
James, the point that Craig made, how much of the Arsenal board saying now, right, we've given you all the toys, we've given you everything you need now to really compete properly with Liverpool, and how much will Arteta be judged at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, he has no excuses now. He's been given everything he wanted. I went on tour with Arsenal to Singapore and to Hong Kong, spent some time with some of the executives and just spent a lot of time around the squad. And the sense was, and this was obviously before they did Eze and while they were doing Gyökeres, the sense was, we're pretty happy. We look at teams, I mean, they played Newcastle out there. Look at the mess that Newcastle are in their transfer window. They felt they'd done the majority of their business early. They were happy. They were getting Gyökeres over the line. And they felt they were in a really good place. And Mikel Arteta, who, you know, has sort of habitually, I know every manager sort of wants their players in early, but he's a particular sort of driver for that, of wanting to integrate players as soon as possible. They had this sort of pre-season, again in Spain, where they kind of get the players together and really try and sort of work on that kind of team bonding off-field stuff. And then, of course, on the tour, he had most of those new signings. Gyökeres joined it halfway through. And now he's got Eze to strengthen that left-hand side and offer, you know, increased squad depth. And so everything that he talked about last season, the end of last season, and he's talked about over the summer in terms of identifying why they didn't win the league, well, squad depth, a lack of robustness in the players, an inability to be able to rotate and still maintain that first 11 at a really elite level. Those excuses have gone now. They've got their number 9 that they've been waiting for a number of years. He's got a goal a game in Europe over the last couple of seasons. They've brought in really high quality players. You know, this is Arsenal, who have spent £52 million on Noni Madueke, who is not going to get in the starting lineup. You know, you think 4 or 5 years ago, if Arsenal would have spent £52 million on a player who wasn't going to get in the team, you'd have thought it was crazy money. But now that's where they are. This is where they think they should be, going for the Premier League, going for the Champions League, and signing players to give them that depth so that they can compete on 4 fronts.
I saw Henry Winter earlier today, I think it was, James, talking on some podcast or programme, saying he thought that Eze should have gone to Spurs because he'll play every week. I mean, personally, I think he'll start in this Arsenal team, right, on the left-hand side. But what's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, Gabriel Martinelli has been... They've shown a lot of faith in him. I think he's had
he's inconsistent, isn't he?
Sorry, go on. Yeah, and I think he's had a sustained dip in form for quite a long period of time, and there's only so long if you're going to talk about win now signings, and that's how they kind of pitched Gyökeres to us sort of behind the scenes. It was why they switched from him to him from Benjamin Sesko, who's obviously a bit younger, less proven. They were like, well, look, this guy's got a goal a game in Europe over the last couple of years. He's 27, he's peak, he's ready to go. And Eze feels a little bit like that now. It's like, well, can you really wait another year for Martinelli to try and rediscover his best form and kick on? I think Eze will start on that left-hand side. Maybe not. I don't know if they're going to be able to register him in time for Saturday, and then of course they've got Liverpool away, so it might be after the international break that we see him playing more consistently. But Eze is a win now signing, isn't he? He's had a fantastic season with Crystal Palace. Again, he's similar sort of age to Gyökeres, so you don't buy him to wait for a year or 2 years. You buy to get him in the team and get him improving you. And Craig's right, he does give them something different. And you know, they talked about this when they went out of the Champions League to Bayern Munich the season before last. I remember speaking to one of the executives after that game, and they said, we just missed that bit of zip, that bit of something different in the final third, and that's exactly what Eze gives them.
What's that mean for the title race, Shaq?
Well, as we sit right now, even with the addition of Eze, I still don't make Arsenal favourites over the likes of Liverpool and City.
Oh, you still think they're third in that pecking order?
I think it's going to be a very close top three. Before the signing, I didn't have Arsenal as winning it. Even with the signing of Eze, I don't see them leapfrogging at the very least Liverpool. And I still think I'll say the same things about Arsenal. For Arsenal to win this title, everything has to go their way. They've got to get 25 or 30 goals from Gyökeres. Bukayo Saka's got to stay fit, which he didn't last season. You've got to get a similar return on both ends of the park from their centre-backs in Gabriel and Saliba in terms of how good they are defensively and the threat that they pose in set pieces up at the other end. All those things come together gives Arsenal every chance to win the title. But then you are asking, Liverpool didn't have many injuries to contend with last season. Will that run of luck continue for them? City, I know we're only 90 minutes into this current Premier League season, but they're showing more shades of themselves of 2 years ago. So however you look at this, it's going to be a far tighter top three than it was last season. And truly, it's you can make an argument for any of that.
I know Arsenal didn't play great at Old Trafford. They ground out that result. They were a bit sloppy. But if you've watched Liverpool Community Shield in the Bournemouth game, there's quite a few headaches there for Arne Slot to worry about. I think in terms of the new signings coming in, bedding in with the centre-halves, the two new full-backs, Florian Wirtz. So I think there are sort of issues there. And yeah, United played okay in this game, better than what we thought. Arsenal didn't play brilliantly, but got the 3 points. But I don't think it's a given that we're going to see the exact same Liverpool as last year, that in the first 6 months of the season, let's be honest about it, they were the big surprise. The first 6 months of Nottingham Forest apart, at home, they blew everybody away. Mm-hmm. But the changes they have made, and they've signed some really good players. Of course they have Frimpong, Kerkez, Florian Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak may come in. But there's two out of the back four have changed. And that's not always easy, and we've seen that already at Wembley, and we saw that against Bournemouth. So I think Arsenal are in a good position. I had them as favourites this year before Eze signed, and I think themselves and Liverpool have had a brilliant summer in terms of who they've brought in. But if I was Arsenal, I would be feeling really good about my chances. It's now their time to go out and do it, and I don't see any reason. There's no facet of the Arsenal team, unless Gyökeres doesn't score goals, and his record would suggest he will, but who knows. But there's really no facet of the team now, with all these signings, you go, they're weak. They're strong at the back, the goalie's performing well, they've got almost two players for most positions, they've got the likes of Moreno, who'll be on the bench, you got Ruben Mendes come in, Declan Rice, Odegaard, and then you've got no Kai Havertz, but you've got a number 9, and then you've got multiple players to back up the wide positions. Not one or two, you've now got multiple players if something happens. So there's no position in this Arsenal team that you can look at and say, they're weak.
Meanwhile, James, give us the inside of what happened at Spurs, because the Spurs fans that I've been speaking to blame Daniel Levy.
Well, in terms of the Eze deal falling down?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they feel as though they couldn't have done any more than they did. I think if they had their time again, maybe they would have moved a bit quicker. I mean, what we're talking about here is the deal that the two clubs have ended up striking was for 67.5 million all in. The release clause was 68. I mean, it's, at that level, it's peanuts, really. If you all along you were going to pay 67.5, you could have just paid 68 when the release clause was active and kind of got it done earlier. And that's probably where I think there will be a bit of criticism, because if we're talking about Arsenal in part reacting to Kai Havertz's injury, well, Spurs have suffered two major blows in this window already. One is James Maddison's serious injury, and the second was losing Morgan Gibbs-White. So they had more time to react to those two disappointments, and they've ended up kind of edging towards an agreement. Maybe they again have moved a little bit too slowly, and they've ended up being gazumped by Arsenal. That would be the criticism. But I suppose from Spurs' point of view, to balance it out, they found the deal difficult to do. They ended up with an agreement with the player. They thought, that they had got the player on side, that he wanted to come. And ultimately, it's not as though they've been outbid. Arsenal haven't bid any more money here. It's a case that the players boyhood club was Arsenal, and once they came in, there wasn't anything they could do to match it.
Kulusevski is injured as well. Just to throw some more.
There you are, Spurs fans.
Just to throw some more good news in there. And look.
And you got City at the weekend.
Well, maybe the player, maybe Eze, and there's nothing you can do when you're a club in this scenario. Maybe the player was hedging his bets and just waiting and buying time because he thought there might have been an opportunity, and that's somewhere else at a club that's ready to rock and roll now, which Spurs are not. Arsenal are. They'll be competing in every competition, and when you're a player, that's difficult because if you're 21, 22, you can step into a project. You know, everybody talks about projects now. Project at Man United, project at this club, project at Chelsea with younger players, so they say. And that's fine when you're a young player, but when you're in the peak of your career, which Eze is at 27, that period between 27 and your early 30s, before Mother Nature really catches up with you and you start struggling, that 4 or 5 years is where you've got to make hay. And I think he's probably been sitting there thinking, I'm not sure, and I don't know if this is the right move for me. And then all of a sudden, you know, he's going to a club that's going to be competing in all competitions.
Someone wrote in to ask me about why you say Mother Nature and not Father Time.
Someone has...
I just thought of that now. I just remembered that.
Somebody has got too much time in their hands.
There you go.
And who writes to you anyway?
Lots of people write to me. Lovely. Like some lovely messages from Spurs fans yesterday.